Right, hopefully it's going to work all right. Let's have a check. All right, we haven't done a stream for a while. Haven't done a stream for quite a while. So just waiting for this to come on. Welcome everyone. Haven't had a stream for a long time, a little while. So I'm going to do a little live stream today. Just going to check that the audio is going okay. And then we're going to answer some questions. I've got so many questions from the last probably couple of months before I've done a stream, and I haven't made as many videos as I wanted to in the last couple of months. So anyway, I hope you're doing well. And let's see if I can find my own channel. That's should be easy. Anyway, yeah, let me just see if I can find this, and we're going to just check that the audio is all right. Yeah, so I'm doing good. I am busy as usual in the clinic. It's winter in Perth where I live, which is the season of the colds and flus. I've got a bit of a blocked nose today. Otherwise doing good. I'm just going to check this audio. Just give me one sec. Could be a bit louder, I guess. All right. Just going to crank that. There we go. Crank it up as best as I can. So welcome everyone. Hope you're doing well. And we're going to get right on into it. So let's see if that's not too loud. Hopefully it's not too loud. So welcome everyone. It's better. Okay, great. All right. So I've got plenty of questions, and people can ask questions in the chat if you want to. I'm only going to be able to do this for an hour, I think, today because I've got patients coming in soon. But I just had a little unexpected gap. And I thought I'd use the time wisely. And hopefully we can connect with some people. Most of the people on this channel are in the US, so hopefully it's not too late for you, UK. Who knows what time it is there? It's probably early hours of the morning. Let's have a look. What time is it around the world? Where would we be without technology, right? This I love this thing. This what's it called? This world clock that you can get from Apple, and you can just put all the times in at any old time. So it's 11:30 at night in the US, and it's 4 a.m. in the UK, so hopefully there isn't anyone from the UK listening, but it's no shame if you are. I always get patients that book in for insomnia at 3 o'clock in the morning because I have an online booking system, right? And I can say, I don't, watch those notifications come up, but I can see what time people book in. And sometimes you wake up in the morning at 8 o'clock and you're like, oh, some people booked in at 3 o'clock in the morning last night. They could put a thing in their comments, and sometimes they'll say, I can't sleep or something like that. They were asking for the help with those things. Anyway, it doesn't surprise me. And I love to help people. So hopefully I can help you today. So I've got a few different questions, like heaps actually. I'm not sure whether we'll just get through some, but if you want to ask a question live on the chat, that's what this is for. We are nearly at 10,000 subscribers on this channel, which is awesome. I'm so excited. I'd love to get 100K just because I'd love one of those little plaques. I don't know if there's 100,000 people interested in Chinese medicine, but if you haven't subscribed, now's the time to subscribe and join the train and get us to 10K this soon. It should be in a couple of months, I would say, if not earlier. All right. So... okay. There's quite a few questions here. Let's do the first one that I've. These are in no particular order. They're just questions. I'm going to put this right big on the screen here so people can see it, but then I can't see it, so I've got to find where I put it. Where did I put it? On my computer. This must be it. Okay, cool. So this is a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, asked. And I was saying, eat till you're mostly full, I think, in this video. Like, as in, there's a saying in Chinese medicine that says, eat till you're 70% full. I'm just going to put this out of my face so it's not too distracting. By big meal, this person says, Emmy Pilates. By big meal, do you mean high volume, but potentially low calorie, or high calorie big meal? As in, we're saying don't have a big meal, like when Chinese medicine's advising you not to have a big meal. So this is probably something where that we could have a bit of a discussion about this. What do we really mean by this? There's a lot of stuff. What's great about Chinese medicine is there's a lot of stuff that's principalic. That sounds a bit religious, but it's based on principle. And you have to think, how are we going to apply this to modern life? How are we going to apply this to modern eating? So the concept is like, don't eat till you're too full. Like, eat till you're 70% full is often a saying that's kind of associated with that you might hear people use. It's hard to know whether you're full with some types of modern foods. This is one of the things we probably didn't know at the start of some of these nasty, snacky kinds of foods, that they interfere with your body's ability to feel a sense of being full. So all of these principles are based on how people ate, before modern changes. And by modern changes, I mean the last 120 years. So 1900s, 1920, something like that. That's probably when things started to go a bit more backwards in terms of our food, slowly, and then really rapidly in the last 10 to 20, or say 20 to 30 years. Like exponentially so. And what we can notice in the 20s and that kind of time is people stopped eating like leftovers for breakfast and they started eating cereal. And that started a trend of eating more carbohydrates than protein. It gave birth to sort of, not that was the reason, but people started to have more convenience foods because it would have been so much less convenient to, and look, this is going to be a long way to get to this answer, but it's an interesting discussion to have. People stopped, they no longer had to go start up a fire to have breakfast, to heat up the leftovers from the last night or cook up some eggs or something like that. They were like, some of these places would have been on the verge of, some had electricity, people didn't, electricity was, this is the time of Thomas Edison, right? That's the pitch of the time. Okay. And so it was like, wow, imagine you could just have your breakfast, get to work on time, maybe have a bit of extra sleep or something like that. Maybe people were sacrificing that kind of convenience for that life. And they didn't think anything bad of it. And look, I'm sure that cornflakes, when they were first made by Dr. Kellogg, his brother actually made them in the first cornflake. And Dr. Kellogg didn't want them to be sugary, but the brother realised that we would sell more if we did. And anyway, that's a longer story about the Kellogg's cornflakes. And like, that's how sanitarium cereals and all these things were born. But part of the appeal of that was, oh, wow, all this convenience, right? Like, as in, I don't have to heat up my stove, start up a fire to heat up the meat and the veggies from the night before or whatever you were eating. And so, you had started having cereal, milk and cereal for breakfast, cereal bars and all that sort of stuff came from that. And we just started to have, because these companies were making those packaged foods like that. I think correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I think that's the first packaged foods that we kind of had, right? Before that, you didn't have companies with lots of packaged food. That'd be an interesting thing to think about. What was the first packaged food ever made? I think it probably was a cereal box cereal. So these kinds of foods over time have become these things where you can eat lots and lots and lots of it, volume-wise, and not feel full. So this whole concept of how much should I eat to feel full is based on eating proper foods. So it's going to be even worse for you to be eating foods that are you're basically going to be able to overwhelm your spleen. That's what this question's based around. There's probably more likelihood of overwhelming the spleen on eating the foods that don't make you feel full so easily, because you can overeat them. There's some foods where you just cannot overeat those foods. This is one of the things I've noticed being on the carnivore diet, and a lot of people say that, right? You just can't overeat meat, and especially since you're not eating other things. Now, if I go and eat a delicious, yummy pasta, or you have, I mean, you can have you can get crazy on chocolate and then say, look, I can't eat anymore. But you've got to eat a lot before you get to that point where I can't eat anymore. So I think we've fallen out of touch with our natural ability to recognize when we've eaten too much. So sometimes what I will tell my patients to do in this instance, if they're struggling with with the volume, is ask them, especially if you're overweight, or the issue is that the volume density of the food is somewhat maybe overwhelming your spleen. I mean, there's going to be some kind of activity where the practitioner's going to ask you, what do you eat, and work out what's best for you to eat. So let's say we might have a conversation about that. I'm not saying, the person eats a massive amount of Twinkies and cereals and all that, and then we don't need to change anything like that. But whatever you'd normally eat, that plate size, serve up what you'd normally have of whatever you'd normally have, and then just have 70% of that, and stop. Even though you feel like, I could eat a bit more. and stop and wait and see how you feel, because some of these foods don't trigger that sensation of fullness, and you won't get that, and you just have to know that I've eaten enough, okay? Or this is where calorie control or portion control or these kinds of things could be useful, because if your brain can't control when it's had enough, that's what it should be doing. Look, Chinese medicine's a natural system. It shouldn't be that you have to have, count everything and, they didn't have any calculators back in the Han Dynasty to work out how much you should eat. People just knew. And you would know that if a person's getting overweight, well, they must be eating too much. If a person's underweight, they must not be eating enough. But all the food qualities kind of, is vastly different. Anyway, I hope that the audio is all right on this, because I can see people coming in and out, and it might just be the time slot of the stream. But I'm just going to double check this again quickly. Maybe it is a bit low, the audio. I'll just turn it up even more. We're just really high. I don't want to peak it out. Anyway, we'll see how we go with that. So, yeah, it's tricky with these artificial foods, these artificial things. So I don't have an easy answer for you to say with that. But, whatever you think you need to eat, or whatever you have been eating, if you feel tired after eating, particularly tired, right, that's a sign that your spleen is being overwhelmed. So it could be the volume of the food, and it could be the quality of the food. So it could be the quantity, like the amount you're having, or the quality of those foods. To answer this question, by big meal, do you mean high volume but potentially low calorie, or high calorie big meal? Could be either of those things, right? Part of its volume in terms of it's actually filling up your stomach. And then I'm sure there's part of this whole process where your body's like, okay, you can eat a massive bag of chippies or something, and then it's like, well, we didn't get what we need. So, and it still needs protein. It still needs nutrients. And it's like, okay, your body's saying, I'm still hungry, even though you've eaten like a lot of, and it might not be a bag of chippies. It might be like, sometimes you go to people's homes before you eat, you have a snack tray of something, right? Like a cheese platter or something like that. And, you could, if it's there, you just sit there and snack on it, eat on it. And then next thing you know, you've eaten, in the old days, your parents would say, you've ruined your appetite. Oh, you've ruined your appetite. And I remember when they used to bring out this little chocolate bar in Australia called Milky Way, and that was all based on it's the chocolate that won't ruin your appetite, because it was just a smaller chocolate bar, and they whipped up the chocolate inside it and made it like whippy, like, frothy. like as if that's less, it's less calories, but it just looked less dense. And that's why I'm using that example as this. It's like this, some of this stuff is trickery, right? Anyway, I remember that. I don't know if Milky Way would still get away with that phrase, but they used to say the chocolate that won't ruin your appetite or something like that. And they'd have little kids coming home from school because you're hungry when you come home from school. And look, you don't need to give them a bloody Milky Way bar. The kid needs some, at the worst it should be, some a sandwich or something. But they probably do better with just like some meat or some protein or even kids can have things like fruit or something like that. It's better than a Milky Way bar. Anyway, so let's continue on with this question. I'll just push this up a tiny bit. Sorry about it's cutting. It's going to cut me off. I'll just put myself like that. There we go. All right. So can high volume eating overwhelm the digestive system, but low calorie but high volume food? I'm curious to know, how does an eating disorder play a role here? Well, look, sometimes these foods can trick you. They can trick you. There's a hormone called ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. And this is not like Chinese medicine, obviously. This is Western medicine hormones. And there are some foods that stimulate that more than others. So the food itself would stimulate that, and the person's like unduly hungry, right? There is a condition in Chinese medicine called stomach heat, which is like a person has this thing called ravenous hunger. Okay, ravenous hunger is defined as you eat a meal and then you think, oh, I'll eat another meal. I'll have 2 meals. 2 meals in one. I'm just going to check the audio again. Well, look, sometimes these foods can trick you. Yeah, it seems okay. Okay, good. I just want to check that the quality is okay, because sometimes there's a bit of a buzz or some weird thing that you don't know about. So these things can trick us, right? And I've seen patients before with this kind of stuff where they've had an eating disorder in terms of overeating foods. Where does the yi play a role here? The intellect, right, is in the thinking. So you can have disordered eating and disordered thinking because of a spleen qi deficiency. And how you got to that spleen qi deficiency could have started with the spleen qi being weak from something else, okay? Like you've lost a lot of blood and you've become spleen qi deficient. That there is a pathway for that to happen. Or you're malnourished and the spleen qi got deficient, or you were a person that worries a lot, or some other thing has happened and now your spleen qi is deficient and it can't sort of nourish the yi, the intellect, properly, and then that would lead to you more easily having disordered thinking, right? And there's a word for, before you say eating disorder, right? They call it disordered eating. It's a new sort of fad in psychiatry or psychology or whatever you want to say, to sort of say, well, you could have you might not have a disease of bulimia or anorexia or any of these kind of eating disorders, but you might have disordered eating, which is just like a more diagnosy kind of way to say, you've got some bad habits that have become sort of a pattern or something that you need to look out for, or a way to detect, okay, if this doesn't stop, then maybe a more serious health condition will actually happen, a mental condition will happen. But it's really interesting. Like I think this is before or after I made that video for this same person who'd asked, actually, I don't know if it was the same person, but someone else was asking about eating disorders and the intellect and all this sort of thing. And then this person at the end of their comment says, I'm just going to make myself smaller here so that I can fit in. I don't know, this is a long comment, so there's a lot to fit in there. She says, I find I'm much better with nutrient dense, but smaller portion or volume. Yeah, so, I mean, the whole point of self-treatment and self-care with Chinese medicine is to be aware. Like, it starts with awareness of yourself. And if you feel better doing a certain thing, now, not heroin, okay, like you might feel better shooting up some heroin at the instant. I'm not saying do that. I'm saying if you feel better with certain habits based on what you were doing before, then that and your body's getting better in terms of things to do with Chinese medicine. Now, if you're not sure whether it's getting better or not, that's when you might need the guidance of a practitioner. But let's say with your spleen, you had bloating and now that's not there, okay? You had pain and now that's not there. You had reflux and now that's not there, or it's less there. You had looser bowels and now they're more formed. Well, all those things are heading in the right direction. So you want to know what the direction is for a start, right? Where are we going? Where's that direction heading? And am I heading towards that? Am I getting, are things getting better? And that's a great way for you to observe yourself and learn about Chinese medicine, because it is a system that looks at how do we interact with the environment. And when I make this change, and these other things happen, great, okay, that means it's working for you. If someone drastically reduces their portion size of foods, let's say, and they feel worse. They feel like, I can't function. I don't have enough energy for my day. But so-and-so said you've got to have 500 calories a day or some crazy amount or something like that. And you're not losing weight and you need to lose weight, or you start to lose too much weight, or you start to become underweight. Well, stop doing that thing. Maybe what you need is different. So this other part of the question says, is this different for everyone based on someone's constitution? So the concept of eating till you're 70% full is universal for everyone, right? And this is based on, in those times, as early as the Han Dynasty and just before that, we have record of foods being used medicinally, but no texts that sort of give out these general sort of principles. So they certainly ate rice in the Han Dynasty. There's plenty of recipes with rice in it, and you can see that they used rice. And there was congee was a part of the diet, right, which is a rice porridge. And those are the kinds of foods that could be overconsumed, right? They also made things like dumplings, and these are the Chinese culture really doesn't use bread like we do in the West, but they definitely made noodles, and they made dumplings, which are kind of a bao bun, which is like a kind of a bread. It's a steamed kind of bread. So these are things that could be overeaten. And there was certainly overweight people at that time. There was definitely overweight people. And there was caution and treatment for trends that we see in the West where people overconsumed or overindulged. By all means, they certainly overindulged in alcohol, because you see lots of treatments in Han Dynasty texts for alcoholic diseases, alcoholic liver disorder, or different, things like that. So they never called it alcoholic liver disorder, by the way, just like you can see, but alcoholism type, people overdrank, and they probably drank worse quality alcohol than you get now, because they had no control, less controls over it, right? As in, it wasn't made in a factory. It was like drinking the spirits that your uncle was making in the back shed, that sometimes are really great and sometimes like rocket fuel. And that's the quantity of the alcohol, the percent of the alcohol wouldn't have been as moderated as it is now, and you probably would have easily gotten sick from alcohol that had gone off and things like that. So they certainly had issues back as early as the Han Dynasty, and then you go through different dynasties where there's certain practitioners probably gave, they were giving more advice based around people abusing their body. People were getting, so it's not just modern foods that have caused us to have these issues, right? Being overweight and things like that. But to go back to the very start of this question, and by the way, if there's people new in the stream, you're welcome to ask a question. This is a live stream. I'm trying to catch up on some questions, but I'll answer new ones as well. I think the modern foods are part of a difficulty in being able to judge, is this food going to you can easily overeat some of these foods way more than you could have before, because of the modification of foods and the packet nature of foods. All right, so that's that question pretty much done. We're going to look for some other questions. Um, I've been. I'm just going to look for the question now while I sort of ramble a little bit here. Let's have a look. Oh, here's one about blood. We might answer that one. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got one here about blood. I'm going to just highlight the question so that we can put it into the chat. This is about blood clots and cycle things. Where's the image thing? So I hope people are doing well, and that you are enjoying whatever season you're in. It's winter here in Perth. It's a bit cold today, but we're getting through it. All right, I'm going to put myself like that, I think. I'm just going to arrange it like that. There we go. Okay, good. Sorry. I've got a tiny bit of a residual bit of a nose cold, head cold going on still. I'm very grateful for Chinese herbs because I've been taking lots of stuff and it's worked good. So not that it doesn't work good, but it's good when it it's good when it works really good. So this is a question, and for the new people joining in, you can definitely pop in the chat to ask your own questions. That'd be cool. That's fine. So Anne says, "Good morning. First, thanks for the video." And this video was on how long does it take to treat blood deficiency with herbs? Okay, an older video I've made actually. I can see that. And this is about 3 weeks ago. This person's asked this question. I'm reading their question. I lose a lot of blood with clots in it when I have my periods. I would like to understand how we can have stagnation at the same time as losing a lot of blood, like overflowing. Which organs are related to creating the clots, and which organs let the blood overflow? The spleen, in brackets, the spleen is responsible for the amount of blood running in the veins, vasoconstriction, if I'm correct. Thanks a lot in advance for your explanation. Yeah, so this is a great question because it's almost like that bit of that conundrum. You're like, oh, hang on a minute. Like, why would I have so much heavy bleeding at the same time as like stuck bleeding, if you like clots? So there's a few ways to answer this. There's a few ways. Okay, now I'm going to try and do something. Let's see if we can. A little bit tricky today. Let's see if we can do this. All right. I was messing about before I started this thing. Oh, why won't this add in here? Hang on. Oh, this is weird. Okay. I won't be able to mess about with this thing, I don't think. It's too hard. I was trying to add my iPad into the scenario. I had it working a second ago. Let's see if we can do this. I'll just put this in here. Okay, we can. Just have to do it again. Over and over again. This might be too small for people to see anyway, but we'll see what's going to happen. So I want to just be able to draw something as we talk about this. Let's see if I can put this like this. Now, if I put it up to here, that should be right. And then I'll just put myself over here. This might seem a bit weird because I'm going to have to do something at the same time. And then I need to be able to read this question. So yeah, okay, right. I've got it now. I think I've got it. Sorry. I don't know. Things you try and make them not complicated, but then they are complicated. So, okay, we're ready. I'm ready to do this. All right, here we go. We're going to share the screen. We're going to share this. Whoops. I'm going to share this one to it. Okay, cool. So hopefully you can see this here at the side and everything's hunky-dory. So this is blood, right, in Chinese medicine. Now, this is a bit like how I would teach in my classes. I've got a new class that I'm teaching for people that are interested in just sort of learning Chinese medicine from the basics. And this is kind of how I would do it. So it's kind of like a little bit of a level below, well, maybe at first year Chinese medicine level, but maybe even a bit below that so we can kind of really explain it. So blood is a concept in Chinese medicine. It's not it's not the same blood as it is the blood that's in your veins, but the concept of what they think is what Chinese medicine think it does is a bit different, right? And when we're trying to treat something where there's a blood disorder, right, disordered blood, so for this person they've got blood clots and they've got a heavy bleeding, we basically ask ourselves these questions like, who's in charge of blood? Well, the liver is in charge of blood, which is a wood element organ. And the liver stores blood. Okay. And then who else is in charge of blood? The spleen is in charge of blood in some way. Okay. And the spleen is said to make blood. And how does it do that? And that's an earth element. Well, it makes blood out of your diet, right? And how does the liver store the blood? Like fundamentally, its main way that it replenishes blood, stores the blood is kind of through sleep. And it's also relying on other things. So I'm trying to simplify this. It's not just only this for people that are like practitioners or something. They're like, oh, you missed something out, Marie. I'm trying to make it simple for you. And then we have the heart, right? Now the heart you'd think does a lot for blood. It's not actually does a huge amount. It's controls blood. And it's not just blood and the vessels. Right, blood and the blood vessels. We'll just get rid of that. We don't need that. That's the heart part, right? And that's fire. So these three organs are definitely a part of it, right? They're all in charge in some way. So if there's something wrong, it has to be an issue with some of these, or one of these, or something of these. So we would kind of think about it in terms of, if we go back a step further, which ones do which things. So in TCM, they think of the spleen's job is to hold blood. Now, this is TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. Classical Chinese medicine has these ideas in it for sure, but they're just not articulated in this same way. But this holding of blood in the vessels, right? And that's when you've got profuse bleeding, like blood just coming out everywhere. That is part of that a dysfunction there. So there's one thing. Firstly, if it was my patient and we were doing it, I was teaching someone to do this in a TCM way, the first thing we would be looking at is the spleen, right? Is there a deficiency of the spleen or the earth? And that is all going to come back to diet, and not just diet, but digestion sort of processes. And that's all really in some way related to yang, because it's the spleen yang or qi that kind of does all of that part of it. So the questions would be, do you have bloating or gassy, or do you have like sticky bowels or loose bowels, tired after eating, all those sort of spleen qi deficiency kind of symptoms like that. That's one way to kind of intervene, to think, okay, maybe the earth element is weak and it can't sort of hold the blood in the vessels, so the blood's sort of flooding out, right? And that's one way of doing it. Now, in classical Chinese medicine, it's sort of it does encompass that idea, but it's kind of more like with herbs. There's certain flavors that are treating that sort of thing when we're thinking about herbs. The other aspect of the spleen not holding the blood in could be like a lack of the blood being warm enough. And this is where with acupuncture, sometimes moxa can be used, right? To sort of nourish the blood and keep like warm it to keep it in, if that makes sense. Now, heat can also make blood flow recklessly. That's a TCM concept. Heat causes blood to flood out. And this is where people get flooding and, crazy amounts of bleeding. And that's another pattern that can be there. That's not really a concept in classical Chinese medicine. That's definitely just a TCM idea. Now, what happened? Why would there be clots? Okay, so clots happen because of a thing called blood stasis. So blood gets stagnant. That leads to the clots. Okay, and why does blood get stuck? Well, blood has to flow smoothly in order for it not to get... Okay, so there's a lack of flow. If there was a proper flow, there would be no clots. Right? But if there's a lack of flow, good flow, no clots, lack of flow, it's going to be blood clots. Now, who's in charge of the flow? The flow is actually liver qi, right? Or wood qi. The free flow of the spreading of the wood energy that kind of provides that free flow. So I hope that's somewhat useful for you. And that's the answer. It could be some of those things. It could be all of those things. There could be many things there that could contribute to this, right? So we'd be looking for patterns like liver qi stagnation, spleen qi deficiency. What else? Like if it was TCM, they'd probably be looking at, is heat making blood flow recklessly? So what can happen is you can have these things happening simultaneously, and there's a relationship between wood and earth, right? So if liver qi gets stuck, then it can often invade the earth and make the earth weaker, so then it can't do its job, and then it can't do its job of holding blood in the vessels, and it's sort of leaking out. It's really, the actual diagnosis is going to be dependent on the pulse. So if a person has a certain pulse, they're going to be more prone to having like stagnation and stuckness because they've got lots of oomph in their pulse, as in, that's not the technical word. But if they're lacking the ability for the pulse to even sort of show itself, or it's really, really, really like hard to find or depleted, that's not a stagnation issue. That person's gone beyond stagnation. Maybe they started with stagnation, but they don't have that now, and it's so deficient. And so if there's less of something, it becomes stuck. And so you can have someone that's deficient that then becomes that can be stagnation. So blood clots, blood stasis can happen from deficiency. So this is quite a common issue that women seek help for in Chinese medicine. I hope that little explanation is useful to you. But it also is a complicated thing. It's not like, oh, here's the one formula that treats all of that, because the reason may be different for you. Now, if there's lots of heavy bleeding, that's the first thing we want to treat usually, in terms of, we don't want you to have lots of heavy bleeding because that's depleting you unnecessarily, okay? I've seen lots of patients where they've had maybe bleeding for months and months and it won't stop bleeding, and that's something where we want to sort of address that with the herbs first. And often the formulas that stop that sort of bleeding in a classical Chinese medicine sense are ones that work on the spleen tonification. So they basically boost that earth energy, make it stronger, but through warming it. And as that warmth comes back into it, a lot of these people will have concomitant sort of digestive issues going on, right? So they might have the loose stools or the tendency to that sort of stuff. that stuff might improve along the way, and then we stop that bleeding, and then we work on moving blood to stop the stagnation. Now, there is a process where we actually move blood to stop the heavy bleeding. That can be done as well. And it's called purging, right? So sometimes stuff is stuck and it's bleeding heavily, and it's actually needed to purge it on the cycle time. This is not for people that are bleeding profusely all the time, but kind of there can be that heaviness because of the stuckness. And this is where you definitely need to see a practitioner. This is not shit you can self-help with. Like you need to, a practitioner can help you with this. A herbalist can help you with this. Acupuncturist can help with this stuff specifically. All right, so we've covered those questions. Great, we've covered quite a few questions. That's good. I was just like, I was going to record a video, and I thought I'll just do the stream instead because I could possibly interact with people at the same time, and also maybe get some of these questions done a bit quickly. Because when I do the videos, like obviously I try to make them good and everything, but you've got to edit it and all that sort of stuff. And also, then you try and make it better, and blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, you haven't put the video out. So I know some people want their questions answered. What else can we answer here? Let's have a look. But whenever I'm keen for a stream, let's say now, 12 o'clock in the day is the worst time for most people who watch this channel. I fully understand that. Like, this is midnight for people in the US, and it's 2 like probably 5 a.m. or something if you're in the UK. Wakey. All right, what else can we do here? Let's see. Oh, we'll get this response one out of the way. Okay. Let's have a look. Anyone who's joining the stream live can put a question in if they want to. That's totally fine. All right. Someone says, I can listen to you speak all day. Thanks for all you do. Thank you very much. That's lovely for you to say that. Yep. Okay. On an older dampness video, someone says, I've been damp. I don't know what that means. ****. Been a damp. I don't know if they mean BITCH. I don't know if that's what they mean. For most of my life, I changed my diet and my whole life changed. ! That's great, right? And that's the sign that, okay, your body's resilient. It can start to do its own repair, and we can change. We can, your spleen, your earth element is like dependent on what you put in it. That's great. That's great to hear that. All right. We've got a question about hair here. Could probably answer that now, possibly. Let's see. All right. So got a question about hair. Hair health. Okay. So hair comes from, I'm just going to put the question in here while we answer this. Hair relies on a few things. So in one thing hair needs is nourishment of blood. Okay, but it also needs moisture, as in fluids to moisten it. And those fluids in TCM come from the lungs or the metal element. Okay, like it says that the body hair, not so much the head hair, but the lungs are somewhat in charge of hair and skin. So this can sometimes be why people were getting dandruff and, head hair types of conditions. I'm just going super broad here on the answer. So fluids have somewhat a role to play in nourishing hair, but particularly blood, right? And blood is made out of fluid as well, but it's a different kind of, it's different organs. So fluid metabolism is the water and the metal element mostly. So the Zung organs for that is the kidney and the lungs for fluids. For blood, we just talked about blood a second ago. So if you're new to the stream or you just jumped into this question, go back and have a look at that little chart I did where I said, how does blood get made? Where does blood come from? So the heart, the fire element kind of controls blood. The wood element is related to storing of blood, and that's our sleep, and the spleen making blood. So if someone's blood deficient, like if their hair's not being nourished, the first question is, are you blood deficient? So if you're blood deficient, one of the symptoms is hair being withered, right? But it also can be your skin not looking good, like your skin on your face, your skin on your body being very dry, tendency to dry skin. Some types of blood deficiency, people have freezing cold hands, not all of them. You also can be a tendency. Now, you can be blood deficient and not have this, so it's not the hang your hat symptom that has to be this, but you can be dry on your bowels, so like pebbly, dry kinds of stools. People who are blood and yang deficient tend to have looser sort of stools, like really, especially when it's been going on a longer time. It depends on how you got blood deficient. So if you got blood deficient by just simply losing blood, you had a pregnancy that was quite complicated, some kind of complication with birth or something like that, then those things can deplete blood quite directly. If you slowly over years and years have a poor diet in Chinese medicine, what that means can be, watch the videos I've done about what's a blood deficiency kind of diet, and then it's like basically the opposite of that, especially if you're a vegetarian or a vegan and you eat a lot of cold and raw foods. Okay, well, over time you're going to eventually get blood deficient in Chinese medicine. And then the other way is sleep. So if you don't have good quality sleep, and maybe you've got the trifecta going on, all those things happening. So as a practitioner, we might be looking for the cause of that. So we might be asking the patient, how's your sleep, how's your diet, blah, blah, blah. But we also might be thinking, okay, if they have blood deficiency, they've got to have some kind of dry skin, maybe dry bowels, or, the rest of the symptoms that belong to blood deficiency. Lightheadedness can be a common one, where people feel a sense of being lightheaded, like easy get dizzy, or not so much dizziness, postural dizziness, but it's more like you get up quickly and you feel bit lightheaded, a bit off balance. Not sort of like a whirring, crazy dizziness, vertigo, not that. Okay. And then we would think, okay, let's nourish blood. So you might start doing, certain foods or things like that to work on blood, to moisten blood. So Marie, can you talk about making hair strong and healthy? How can acupuncture help, or is hair affected by the lifestyle? So yeah, it's lifestyle things that affect your hair. 1 is sleep, 2 is diet. And these are not in any particular order, but these both affect your hair through blood. What are the best foods to nourish the hair through blood? Bone broth is one of them. Generally warm, cooked and moist, staying away from cold, dry and raw. That's going to support your spleen energy. I also find some patients, their hair is irritated by products they put in it and products that they use. Okay, so if you're dyeing your hair, you have got a certain amount of sort of resilience when you're younger, and then as you get older, that resilience will get less. I mean, there's genetic components to this too. Like, some families just have thinner hair, and some families just have thicker hair. And then the environment plays a role, and the environment is the environment, like I said, hair dyes and things like that, but also the environment you put on your hair, like how often do you wash it? Are you in the pool all the time? Like, these are things that a proper hairdresser is going to be able to advise you on. And there are some really good YouTube channels that can teach you about that. There's a guy that I really like, it sounds horrible, but I've forgotten his name. I'm going to have to look it up. Really good hairdresser, educational guy, but he hasn't put many videos out lately. That's probably why can't remember his name. Blowout Professor, he's called. Blowout, Blowout, Blowout Professor. And I've watched several of his videos on how to, now I'm talking about hair and everything, it's making me scratch my head, how to wash your hair properly and what's a clarifying shampoo. That's a massive game changer. That changed a lot of things for me, and I didn't know that they put these emulsifiers and stuff into shampoos to make them get suds or foamy. And when you use a clarifying shampoo, you do one wash and it's like sort of nothing happens in terms of like you're washing all the dirt out of and the oil out of your hair, and then you put the same shampoo second time and all this foam and suds come on your hair. Whereas if you use any other shampoo, the suds come straight away, right? And technically if there's oil and grease there, the suds shouldn't be happening. Anyway, it's a miracle idea, right? Like as in it's how shampoo should be. Go and watch his stuff. It's called Blowout Professor, this guy. And because I always used to be skeptical. I was like, oh yeah, salon products, just crap. Like, you know, just more money. Like why would I pay $40 for a shampoo versus, you know, the $3 Coles Woolworths shampoo. These are the stores that we have in Australia. Yeah, but there is a big difference. So I've been convinced now, especially with that clarifying shampoo. I wouldn't buy any other sort of shampoo now. Like it's, you know, that's kind of, he talks about it like find your shampoo and conditioner soulmate. And I think I found my soulmate now. I don't need to change. But that if you are washing your hair all the time, that's part of the environment. It's part of, you know, in Chinese medicine, we think about we're facing the environment, and part of us sort of over-facing, overstimulating your scalp. And that can then cause there to be irritation there, which can be things like dandruff, and then you might then feel the need to wash your hair even more and things like that. So, okay, that's part of lifestyle. Like how often do you wash your hair? Are you in the pool all the time? Are you around chemicals, things like that? Like that's obviously going to batter your hair more than normal. The other big thing that impacts hair, a big one, is major stress. It can cause people's hair to fall out. And in classical Chinese medicine, we think of it more like the yang of like the stress causes yang deficiency. That weak yang floats up and makes the head hot, and you kind of like the hair falls out. You see this in TCM where they talk about a sudden shock can make the hair go grey. Okay. The hair lose its colour. The hair to lose its fortitude or to fall out, to just suddenly fall out. And that in TCM is talked about in terms of kidney essence. The Jing kind of is scattered by fear and shock. It doesn't have to be as crazy shock as you would think it would be. For some people, it can be going through a traumatic experience. And that's a well-documented thing in, like, outside of Chinese medicine about what can cause, hair to fall out is shock and stuff like that. So that's for people that have got, like, maybe they've suddenly got hair loss, like chunks of hair are coming out that normally wouldn't come out. They're noticing they're losing more hair. So there's kind of like a multifaceted approach. Now, for some of my patients, I've treated quite a few people that come in with this concern. They often are blood deficient or blood or yang deficient, and we kind of treat that, and that's kind of how we approach it. They'd have to have that pulse, they'd have to have the need for those formulas. I wouldn't just give it, you can't sort of sell Chinese herbs as like, oh, this is a hair tonic. Now, they do that in China. There's one particular herb that's used a lot for hair greyness, like greying hair. And it originally it says this herb blackens the hair. Now, a Chinese person would not have another colour hair, right? Before hair dyes, before the 50s, they didn't ever dye their hair, right? never see a Chinese person with different color hair. Now they can, there's go to China and there's all kinds of colors of hair that people have, right? Because they dye their hair, and that's great. They can do that if they want to. So what they mean with this herb called Herschel, Heshouwu, it's a blood tonic herb. It's not a herb that's used in classical Chinese medicine. It's more of a moderner TCM kind of herb. It's said to blacken the hair, which is like to, it's a blood tonic. That's how it works. It works on liver blood. Now, there is a guy who died in China from Herschel poisoning, right? Because he was obsessed with trying to get his hair back. I think also baldness, hair falling out, something like that. It's going to be used for those things. And there's a massive amount of popularity of superfoods in China. They don't call them superfoods, but we're going to eat bears' gallbladders and bile or whatever they use, and deer penis for fertility and all this man time and all whatever. This guy went to many herbalists and got multiple prescriptions for Herschel Wu, and he overdosed his liver and kidneys, and he died of liver and kidney failure because he'd taken too much of it, and he was buying Herschel Wu shampoo, washing his hair with it, and soaping himself with it, and basically using it externally. And it's a great example of people think, oh, herbs are just natural and safe. I can take as many of those herbs as I want to, without any detriment, without any consequence. Well, no, you can't. You cannot do that. Because there is detriment and consequence to taking natural things in excessive amounts that you don't need. So that's the story of Herschel Wu. So don't just go crazy on that herb. And that is an example of a folk medicine herb in a way. Like Chinese herbalists don't use one herb at a time. Very rarely do they use that. There are a couple of formulas, but Herschel Wu by itself is not a formula. Okay, there's a couple of formulas that use one herb, but it's most of the time it's a combination of herbs, because it's understanding, well, this herb does this, that herb does that, and we're sort of balancing the whole thing out. All right. So I think I've done well today. I've answered up quite a few questions. I wasn't expecting people to jump into the stream live. That's totally fine. Hopefully this is going to come out okay in audio wise. It seemed like it was all right to me. So I'm going to jump back because I've got some patients to see in a little while, a few minutes. So hope you're all doing well. And I do have a course that's going to be starting soon, Chinese diet therapy. I forgot to mention that. So I started this 1-year program in Chinese medicine. I'm super excited about it. There's people that have already joined up, and I am going to be packaging that up to do as a on-demand course eventually, okay? But right now it's all live, and you get access to the on-demand as you go along. So you can jump into that course if you want to, the 1-year program, and you can just catch up to the weeks. We're up to week 5 at the moment. But in mid-September, we're going to be starting Chinese diet therapy. And I'm going to make some other videos about what the Chinese diet therapy actually is, like what is that discipline, so that people can understand that, because it's a misunderstood discipline. But I am going to open that up to anyone who wants to join that course. So as in, it could be that you could be a TCM practitioner, you could be a student of Chinese medicine, you could be a person who doesn't know anything at all about Chinese medicine. You'll be able to come into the course and learn stuff. Many colleges don't teach Chinese dietetics or Chinese diet therapy at all, and many colleges just do a small amount in it. So this is a 12-week program. What we're going to do is go through what is the spleen and stomach in a diet way, as in what would support that, what's the best diet to support that, how do you understand different diets in relation to what the spleen and stomach likes, what the earth element's nourished by. And then we're going to go through every single food, almost, like all the categories of foods for sure, maybe not every food that exists in the whole world. But then when something comes along, you'll be able to assess that. So what are all the different properties of the basic properties of grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, meats, poultry, fish, all these kinds of things. As a category, what are these properties? Individually, what are the differences? And that's the best way to understand these things. Many texts don't teach you how to understand it. They just go rice, wheat, fish, eggs, nuts, all these things. And there's just a list of what they do. And you think, oh, my goodness, how am I going to remember this? And it's only because I was interested in it. And I also have been teaching this a long time. Like, it's one of the first classes I ever taught. I used to teach it at a shiatsu school, and then I taught it at the school where I learned Perth Academy of Natural Therapies, taught it there for a little while, and then I taught it at another college for a long time there. So I've taught it, and I used to teach it at TAFE. Like, I've taught this kind of stuff many, many times at lots of different colleges. In different contexts. So, I've got lots of experience in being able to explain this and think about, okay, how can I actually remember this stuff? Like, how can people remember it? Because at the end of the day, when you're pushing your trolley down the shop, you want to know this stuff. You want to remember, oh, nuts would be good for this, or pears would be good for that. Oh, we're coming into winter now. I should buy this food because what if I get sick with this? Or what do I normally suffer with? Like, what might you suffer with? Colds and flus, that kind of stuff. How could you treat those things with foods? And then another big part of it is cooking with herbs. Okay, so like having Chinese herbs, like the herbs that you can see behind me. Some of these things you can cook with. Some of them you can't. They taste terrible, and they're more medicinal than any kinds of foods. But that's kind of what we're going to be doing in the class. I'll make a longer video, sort of a specific video about the Chinese dietetics, and the enrollments haven't opened on the website yet, but they will soon. So if that's something you're interested in, it's a 12-week program. It's every Sunday night, Perth time, 8 p.m. If you're in the UK, that's about in the middle of the afternoon for you, I think, something like that, about 1 p.m. your time, roughly, maybe 3 p.m. If you're in the US, it's 8 a.m. for you, 8 or 7 a.m., something like that. And so that's why I've done it. 8 o'clock at night is not my favouriteest time to do a class, but I can do things late because I'm a late night person. But I'm doing it at that time to be able to connect with people in the UK, in the US. So you can benefit from that. And happy days. All right, I'm going to log off now. And thanks everyone for supporting the channel. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that. Like and subscribe. Share the show with all the people you know. Whatever.